Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and today my guest is from the same sports network, podcast network that I'm on, Fans First Sports Network, Chris Madrigal from the Town Tailgate podcast, which is a really, really good Oakland A's podcast. If you follow the A's, then you should definitely follow Chris and his show. Welcome, Chris.
What's up, man? I'm super pumped to be here. I'm super pumped for the season as an A's fan. I think the title of your show says it all, the Oakland Warriors podcast. So if these are Oakland Warrior fans, and they're probably also Oakland A's fans, so they're probably understand the depression that I've been going through this past season, and not even just to say the least about the Raiders, who are just on an epic downward spiral right now. So I'm just ready for basketball season to start so I can have some positivity in my life and my sports fandom, because it's just freaking miserable right now.
Let's talk about what is coming up. And, since I asked you to come on the show, a couple things happened. Let's just talk about those right quick. So the Warriors, they signed Rudy Gay. I believe he's like 37, 38 years old. And after he got signed, everybody's like, oh yeah, we got Rudy Gay, like another wing. And then other people were like texting me saying, he shot 25% from three and 35% from the field last year. What are your thoughts on Rudy Gay coming to the Warriors on a pretty cheap deal? It was like a 1 year non-guaranteed or something. So
yeah,
low risk, medium reward, I think.
I mean, let's call it what it is. He's the 15th guy off the bench. Like that's what it is. He's the 15th guy. He's when Moody and Kuminga are hurt, he's going to get some minutes, and that's about it. I mean, I didn't think too much of it. I forgot that he was still in the league, to be honest with you, man.
I feel like he's one of those dudes, like if you call him, he's in the league. If you don't, he's not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm here, but I'm not. And, I think it's funny how they've completely gone, like the pendulum swung the other way in a lot of ways, that they're going super old, even though they got some young dudes still. But
I feel like that's what Kerr wanted all along. I think that Bob kind of forced him into like let's do young and old, and let's mix the eras. I think Kerr has always been like Pop. He wants the older guys.
Yeah, I mean, because when you look at some of these coaches and GMs in general, it's like they are there for X number of years, like their contract, and then you want to win, and you can see an 18, 19-year-old isn't going to be like the one necessarily to help you right away. But I think one thing I don't want is like for Kerr to opt for Rudy Gay over like Kuminga or Moody, as he tends to do, because those guys need to play. I think if Rudy Gay, like, it's like, sure, you need to, somebody gets hurt, throw him out there, and that's about it. It's another veteran dude, another old head that can, just be somebody that's closer to Steve Kerr's age, I suppose.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on Dunleavy saying that the Warriors, in terms of Dwight Howard, that they already have like 5 centers, so didn't really make a move on Dwight?
I have some friends who were upset. I just don't know what Dwight brings to your team. This current adoration of Dwight Howard, I don't know what he brings to the Warriors that Trace Jackson Davis, who is younger, is more athletic, is probably more durable now, can bring to that team, or taking minutes away from Looney, the greatest rebounder in the history of the NBA. And like, I mean, I just don't know what he brings. Like, there's probably a reason why he's playing in China. Let's just say that. I mean, like, if he was
Taiwan,
sorry. If he was good enough to be on an NBA roster in a valuable member of the NBA roster, then he would be on an NBA roster. I don't care how annoying he is. There are guys who have worse off the court issues than him that are on teams currently right now, so it's just like, and the other thing, just with Rudy Gay real quick, the first thought that comes to mind when you see that signing is you're like, oh, veteran presence in the locker room. This team doesn't need veteran presence in the locker room. This team is full. This team's core is veteran presence in the locker room. So like, that's another thing that didn't put. So like these two free agent issues or free agent scenarios, I just didn't see the point for them. I don't, like yeah.
Well, then you throw in Corey Joseph, and like they took two guys and from Detroit, and Rodney McGruder, who I've said this before and I'll say it again. I've always loathed Corey Joseph's game when he was in Toronto, like in Detroit. It's just like, it feels like he just puts his head down and goes like, it's me time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I know he probably won't be able to do that, but I'm not super excited. Like, like I've said before, if once those guys are on the court at the same time, I'm taking a long bathroom break because that's going to be some ugly basketball if they ever end up on the court together at the same time. But yeah, Rodney, giving Draymond somebody else to smack this in the preseason. I don't know. Any thoughts on those dudes?
I mean, I think the Corey Joseph thing is more. The only reason why I would think that the Warriors brought him in, one, they need a second unit point guard, like they just do, a second and third unit point guard. And they need someone to bring the ball up and kind of run the court. And the only way I can see how Corey Joseph ended up on the team is that Dunleavy had a very serious conversation with Corey Joseph's agent and told him, like, your job is not to put your head down and drive to the hoop and try and score. Your job is going to be on this team to feed these two young guys who it looks like are going to be the offensive breadwinners of the second unit in Kuminga and Moody. We can talk more in depth about this later, but like, I just don't know where the offense is coming from in the second unit. And the only rationalization I can think of is that Kuminga and Moody sat down with Kerr in the offseason and were like, we want a bigger role. And he was like, okay, I'll give it to you. You guys can be the offensive power horse of the second unit, but you have to step up to the plate and do it. So like, I just think that's what Corey Joseph's. I know that's not his history of gameplay though, which is interesting, but that's the only like role I could see him having on this team.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the way I look at it is he is a veteran insurance guy in case, Chris Paul gets hurt, Steph gets hurt, so they don't have to turn to a Ty Jerome, young dude, unproven, more or less, somebody of
turning the ball over like crazy.
Yeah, and I like Ty Jerome. So again, just like somebody who is just a veteran, because that's the way they're obviously leaning, as we said. But second unit, like I don't see Corey Joseph on that second unit. Like I see the second unit with, Steve Kerr has his rotations, right? It's not like hockey substitution. So it's Chris Paul, it's Saric, it's Kuminga, Moody, and maybe Wiggins, or put
Gary
Klay
Payton
at 3,
too.
or GP2. So like, you're not going to hopefully see Corey Joseph unless at some point in the preseason training camp or whatever, he really shows that he deserves minutes. I mean, I think the same thing is true for McGruder. I don't actually know McGruder's fit. The dude is 6'4". He's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not going to, he's better than me. So I'm not going to knock him, but like, where do all these dudes fit? Because again, you're still kind of getting smaller and whatnot. So I don't know if all those guys are going to be on the team by like come March, April, or whatever. Then, that being said, like, I don't like Corey Joseph's game, but of course, if he's getting signed, then he will probably most likely fall in line at this point in his career. But yeah, in terms of the second unit, like, I'm not super concerned, honestly, about the scoring. I think Chris Paul,
who do you score? Who do you scores in the second unit? But that's the other thing. That's the other thing. Like, Chris Paul has not been healthy the past 2 seasons of his career. Are we expected to believe that he's going to be able to play 22 plus minutes a game? Like, someone else is going to have to run point in on that bench besides him and besides Steph. So it's like, it's Corey Joseph or Gary Payton. Gary Payton's never really been like the point guard,
No,
like,
he's not.
never really been like the quarterback on the court. So
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to mix it up, right? Like, a couple years ago, I said after the Suns lost to Dallas in the playoffs, I was like, Chris Paul's done, like I don't trust him getting anywhere deep into the playoffs at all. And it's like, hey, guess what? He's on our team now. That sucks.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, if he goes down, then they're going to be in trouble. But I think that they have enough to mix and match. I think, you could put Klay on the second. You could put, like I believe in Kuminga. I hope Moody takes that next step. And I think if Chris Paul is healthy, I like the fact that he can shoot the mid-ranger. I like the fact that he can get guys involved. What the Warriors had last season with their second unit was Jordan Poole, who was replicating Steph. And in this way, they get a different look, a guy who can actually get guys shots. So, everybody's hyping up like, oh, how Chris Paul will be. He'll unlock Kuminga the way he unlocked
DeAndre Ayton or
exactly.
Yeah.
Like
or
all those bigs.
Or Gallinari a few years ago, or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah. So but it all comes down to health, especially with all the teams in the West, all the old head teams, right? Where it's like, you got an old Kevin Durant, you got a old LeBron James, and a frail Anthony Davis, and an old frail Paul George, and an old frail Kawhi Leonard. The Warriors just happen to have more old frail dudes. So it's all about like just being healthy and peaking at the right time, as we know, for this team. So, we'll see how the first few months go. I mean, I don't know. Were you a Poole fan?
I was, man, I just have such mixed feelings towards him, dude. Like, when he got punched in the face last offseason, I was out on Draymond. Screw you. Like, this is the last straw. Like, you just can't go around just punching teammates. But then, like, hearing the stuff behind the scenes about how he was acting, and then you see his gameplay and kind of the way he's playing, kind of it reflects a little bit of his attitude off the court that you're hearing, being like playing hero ball. Like, let's just say by the end of the season, especially playoff time, when he was just horrendous in the playoffs, I was tired of the two scenarios of Jordan Poole. One, he'd bring the ball up and take a 30-footer and expect it to go in like Steph Curry, or he'd bring the ball up and he'd lose it and a turnover would happen. Like, I was just so over that Jordan Poole and his, like, selfish is not a good word, but his ISO ball, his ball hog playing. And I was, when the Chris Paul trade happened, I had a lot of Warrior friends who were mixed feelings. I was pumped about it because, to me, so we already had one of probably the best assist man and best passers in the past 10 years of the NBA, and Draymond Green, and we just added the second best. So and with the two best shooters in the history of the game on our team, like, these guys are going to freaking find these guys no matter what, and they're going to get these guys, get Steph Curry, get Klay Thompson, get these guys open in places that we've never seen before. Like, and it felt like that, especially in the playoffs. Like, when Jordan Poole would come in, he kind of shut down guys like Klay Thompson. Like, it would be like 5 minutes would go by and you'd be like, man, Klay hasn't put up a shot in a while. Like, what is happening here? And he would kind of ball stop those guys, where I think that Chris Paul is going to enhance that a little bit more. So I like Jordan Poole, but I just don't know if I liked the trajectory he was going on. And I think that they got off of that at the right time.
Yeah. I was more than happy to see him go like you. I mean, I was, every game, like, I was talking about how tired I was of this trajectory. I don't want to like rehash everything, like the falling down, the heat check, the dancing and prancing pool party BS on one end, and then Matador defense on the other, right? Like, I actually couldn't really stand all the pool party stuff, because, like, hey, dude, play both sides of the floor. And I was like, I couldn't understand how they couldn't get him to play better defense. It is what it is. But I mean, Chris Paul being on this team, listen, like, all this talk about will they fit on the court together, the vets and whomever. Draymond, like I said this in the last episode, it's like Draymond and Chris Paul are basketball geniuses, right? So they will figure out how to do it. And they're also on the downsides of their careers. So they're mature. Well, to some extent, right?
Well, we say that now, and then a week later, and then a week from now, Draymond Green's going to punch someone else in the face, and then we're going to change our mind.
Yeah, it's going to be Rodney McGruder.
Yeah, bro.
But when it comes down to those guys on the court, I think, when the 2020 draft was coming up and everybody's like, is it going to be Anthony Edwards or LaMelo or Wiseman or somebody else? I wasn't a big LaMelo guy, and I don't know if that actually would have worked out, but like I did think it would be great to have this amazing passing point guard who could get Steph and Klay off ball and just have them running around. And
it's what Steph does best, dude.
Yeah. And so, Chris Paul is now the best point guard that he's ever played with. And granted, he's like 38 going on 39 or something, but just seeing him in those rotations will be really, really fun and interesting, because you try to, guard Chris Paul and then have Steph and Klay running around separately. I think that'll be really entertaining. And part of it is also just something that we haven't seen as fans before, because assuming reasonable health, this team's going to make the playoffs, right? So like, it's going to be great just to see these dudes in different scenarios and seeing these guys with their skills and mental acumen for the game out there together. And again, that's why, like, with Chris Paul playing with some of these bench dudes, I think he will be able to make sure that the game is flowing, that guys are getting touches, that guys are that they're getting looks and whatnot. You know what I mean? I'm expecting Kuminga and Moody to make a leap, a reasonable leap. They did when they got minutes last year. Kuminga made a huge leap. He shot 37% from three when Wiggins was out and when Gary Payton was injured. And he didn't get to play after that, right? Like, everybody's questioning, you read all like these blogs, all, when it's dead over the off season, and it's like, oh, Trey Kuminga, like, oh, is he going to make, like, he can contribute if you put him on the court. And then we saw with Moody in the postseason as well. So, I think they'll be all right. There will be growing pains, but I think that they'll find their rhythm eventually. I don't think you need like a Jordan Poole heat check guy to shoot you in or out of games,
Yeah. And the rumors that I'm hearing and reading out of the offseason is that Kuminga and Moody have been in the training facility. Like, it's every single day, like working on stuff to try and be better, at least offensive players. I mean, Kuminga is a different story on defense. He makes a lot of like kind of dumb mistakes and with the rotations and switching and stuff like that. But offensively, the rumors are that they are in there and they are working and they are trying to like really build up the game, which is why I really think that like Steve Kerr sat down with them, especially after like you saw the disgruntledness, like the clips of Kuminga in the playoffs, like mad that he's not getting playing time. I really think that Steve Kerr sat down with him and was like, look, this is the role that we're going to play. And like, this is what you guys need to do. And you guys need to work on this stuff. And I think they're taking that seriously. And we'll see what happens. I kind of want to paint a picture of like what I think the offense will be with, just real quick, with like Chris Paul in it. Like, imagine Chris Paul, he's running, this is like a Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green like lineup. Imagine Chris Paul bringing the ball up. Steph's doing his thing where he's just running, moving screens, moving defenders, getting defenders off of Klay Thompson, getting defenders off of Wiggins, forcing defenders to switch and move around. So you got that. He's going to open up the offense for both him and them. And then like Klay's biggest asset the past, like since he came back from his injury, is like his spot up shooting, which is always what he was doing. He was always a great catch and shoot guy. So if you can just have him kind of sit and like move back and forth and just sit around the 3-point line, like that's where he's going to make his shots. And then you have Andrew Wiggins, who's probably the most underrated cutter in basketball, just cutting to the basket. Like, I mean, and then you got two of the best passers that are just playing the inside out game, passing the ball back and forth to try and find the open man. Like, maybe I'm like too excited and I'm just like too like, but there's something about that lineup that just gets me giddy, like these two great passers, these two guys who are just have amazing basketball IQs to go along with these like incredibly talented and athletic scoring machines in Steph, Klay, and Wiggins. Like I really think there's a lot of potential for that specific lineup, at least.
Yeah, and the one thing that kills me about the Warriors is their inability to get to the free throw line. And I the one of the things I've hated about Chris Paul is that he's one of those baiters for fouls, and I don't know if they changed the rules a couple seasons ago, and then they eased up on the rules. I don't know if they are gonna enforce them more, but if they still give him some of those calls, that is great to me. You know what I mean? Because they need to get to the line. Poole could not get to the line enough because he would fall down all the time. Steph doesn't get calls. I've said before that part of it, I think, is because they don't get up very high on their drives in traffic, that a lot of the contact comes low and a lot of the refs let those go. And also because, maybe they mouth off to the refs a lot as a team. But I'm excited by all that. Do you have any concerns? The big question, I think, is who's going to start, what the starting lineup is going to be. I've said, obviously, it's who finishes is what really matters, and that might be kind of on a matchup game-to-game basis. But do you have any concerns that it's going to be this huge issue?
I think that Steve Kerr is going to reinvent this. I think that he is salivating at the mouth when he got Chris Paul, the idea that each game he can play the matchups of the starting lineup instead of just a set starting lineup every single game. It's like, all right, well, let's say they're playing Milwaukee, for example. You got Brook Lopez and you got Giannis. So you got two big athletic guys. Like Chris Paul is probably going to be coming off the bench that game. So you're talking probably Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Kevon Looney, to try and wear down Brook Lopez and Giannis, try and really match up with those big guys. But then let's say you're playing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a small team. Let's say the Suns. Let's say the Suns, if it's I don't know.
A bunch of guards.
Beal, Booker, Kevin Durant, Nurkic, and Eric Gordon. Yeah, small lineup. All right, Chris Paul, you're in. Kevon Looney, you're out. Draymond, you can handle Nurkic, and we'll go from there. I really think that it's going to be a game by game basis, and I think that that's what Steve Kerr loves. He loves versatility in his lineups. He loves to try new things, and he loves guys, which is, I think, why some of the signings came is he loves guys that are versatile, can play multiple positions and guard multiple people. Right. So I think that this is going to be a new experiment for him, and I think that it's going to really show off the basketball mind that Steve Kerr has, because I think, especially in the national media, Steve Kerr doesn't get enough credit for being a great coach and strategic coach on the bench and utilizing the guys that he has. Warrior fans, we know that because we see it every day, but I don't think national media does that. I think national media thinks
not all Warriors fans came in the right.
Oh, really? I genuinely believe that. And I haven't talked to a lot of Warriors fans that don't believe that as well. But I think a lot of people think that Steve Kerr was a right place, right time coach. It's the reason why he's had success. But I think that he was a big part of that success personally.
Of course. They don't do this without. They don't do this with Mark Jackson, in my opinion. But on the other side, he doesn't do this if he goes to the Knicks. So I think with Kerr, it's interesting. I'm curious to see if you're right, because I know that they switch lineups when they have to, when something's just not working. I know that I feel like he likes to stick to a lineup, but at the end of the day, I believe that whatever. This is a good problem to have, right? Trying to make it an issue is just because that's the thing. That's what we all want to see, how CP3 meshes with these dudes, and if there's any fireworks. But to me, when I look at this lineup, it's people are oh, if you sit Looney, then they're really small. Draymond plays a lot of centers and he gets beat up. And then if Obviously, Steph's not going to sit. Klay is not going to sit because he's in a contract year, right?
Mhm.
And he just doesn't like coming off the bench. He's not like one of those dudes who really, really wants to. And I personally think Klay's going to have an amazing year because of the contract year, because he actually played over the summer, and people say he looks good, and because he doesn't have to worry about 23, 24-year-old Jordan Poole outshining him, looking over his shoulder. So I think he'll play freer, especially another year away from those injuries. And I think he'll be great. But then I'm like, maybe you sit Wiggins, maybe you put Klay at the 3. I don't know.
Yeah, but Wiggins is your best two-way guy, though, man. You want to take him off the ball, off the court on both sides of the ball, like.
Hey, I know, and I also think that Wiggins might not be that great off the bench because he works well with Steph and Draymond. So again, like that's not what I'm saying that they should do. Yeah. I'm saying like, hey, that's why Steve Kerr makes millions of dollars, because this is a good problem to have, and this is where you show what you're saying, like this basketball acumen, and to be honest, like I'm excited, and it's almost like the what I had said about Dwight Howard. I loathe Dwight Howard as well. I've never been a fan of that dude, but if they got him, hey, I'd be curious to see what that looked like just for the hell of it, because it's different from what we saw last year. He'd probably stick on the team for like a month before Kerr was like, get this guy out of here. You know what I mean? So I'm not too concerned about Chris Paul meshing with guys. I'm just more concerned about his health. Klay Thompson, as I said, he is in the final year of his contract. There was some chatter during the playoffs that he wanted the max, but no one knows where that chatter came from, and it doesn't really matter. And Draymond took less, and all these new salary cap rules. Do you think there's a scenario where it doesn't happen, where he doesn't stay?
I think if the Lakers didn't spend a lot of money this offseason and had cap room to sign him, that would intrigue him a little bit, because he's from LA. I grew up being a Laker fan, but they don't. And they don't I think they're pretty tied up the next 3 years. So I don't think that's a reality in his world. So, I'm not saying I thought that was going to happen. I'm just saying like, that's the only scenario I thought that could draw him away from the Warriors, but no. And I think that he'll take a reasonable deal. I mean, $40 million for him now, I don't think is appropriate. And I think he's like the least delusional basketball player in the NBA. And so I think he realizes it enough to be like, all right, like maybe in the mid 30 million a year range. But we'll see. I've been wrong before. I was wrong about Draymond. I thought Draymond was going to want way more money, and he didn't. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah. I thought Draymond would actually come to terms, considering, because all this chatter, the Klay chatter was like before, Draymond resigned. And I think there's a reality to the situation that like, whether or not he really did say he wanted the max, you look at where you're at and you take everything into consideration. And I'd said before, I said what you said. The Lakers were the only team I could ever see Klay leaving the Warriors for. Because of Kobe, because being a fan, because of his dad, because growing up in Southern California. So I don't see any scenario at this point, because right now, like Steph flexed around the All-Star break, right? Like, get rid of Wiseman. I want Draymond. The more you move young guys, the more you're able to sign Draymond, right? Like, move Poole, and get Gary Payton back, right? All that stuff. And I joked that he wanted Gary Payton back just so they had someone to hang out with when they were both injured on the bench, right? Now he has a couple other older heads to hang out with when they're all injured on the bench. Just kidding. But to me, I see Steph wanting Klay just the way he wanted Draymond, and these guys wanting to play together as long as possible and trying to make it work. And obviously Dunleavy is, Cory is in Dunleavy's ear, and they just have like open dialogue about this stuff, and you want to make Steph happy. So I think that'll be fine.
There's an aspect of Klay, some off the court stuff that like really makes it like, you know, he kind of, I want to say owes a little bit to the Warriors franchise, but you know, he's grateful to them. Brian Windhorst did like a great piece last year. It was also, he came on ESPN Daily. I listened to that podcast a lot, and talked about his piece about Klay and his rehab. And, you know, he had like, it was a really tough year for him mentally, and he like went through depression and stuff like that. And the, you know, Warriors staff, like the front office, particularly Zaza Pachulia, who is in the front office now, really helped him kind of work through that, and helped him like, you know, be like better and you know, just mentally stable, for lack of a better word. Sorry, I'm not like saying the right words on that, but like, you know, it really helped him like come to a happy place and an accepting place, and he's like really happy with his life now. And I think that he does, based on that piece from Brian Windhorst, I think that he does like feel like the Warriors franchise is like family to him, and he trusts them. So do I think that helps in his contract negotiations? I don't know. It's a dog eat dog world when it comes to money, but I do think that is in the back of his mind. And I do think that's in the back of the Warriors' mind too, that they do want to take care of Klay, because they do, you know, care a lot about him, and they do owe him, you know, something.
This whole idea that, you know, he didn't play before last season, everybody brings that up like he wasn't in shape. When it was spoken that he didn't play, and it was because of the mental block of getting hurt playing in the offseason, playing pickup, I'm like I'm not criticizing him for that. You know, I never like, I empathize with the dude at that point. And, you know, I think like, you know, Zaza, they were such homies before, right? Like when Zaza was actually on the court. And I feel like, yeah, it's just time, you know, working through these things, getting away from this, that, or the other. And, you know, I agree with you. I think he's going to stick around, and that they will find a way to work something out.